let's start. And it's really a pleasure to have Nicola Perra here. Nicola is coming from now from the UK, but originally is Italian, and he did his undergrad and master studies in Cagliari, that is in the beautiful island of Sardinia, in the middle of the Mediterranean. And he was brave enough at that time to join my team in Indiana from the beautiful island. We were 3,000 kilometers from any seashore in the world. And then he has been in this lab, in this institute. At that time was still just a consortium of labs, and then the institute until a couple of years ago, where he has moved to as an associate professor in network science, the business school of Greenwich University in London. That, I think, is a nice example again for students during the PhD here of how a trajectory can, his background is in physics. He worked a lot in diffusion processes, networks, data science, epidemics, and so on. And now, where he's in a business school, so you see that everything is possible. And he has done a lot of work on temporal networks. That is what he will present today, as well as many other things related to diffusion processes. He was one of the pioneer people working on Twitter analysis. And actually is planning together with Bruno Gonçalves to publish, hopefully soon, a book about Twitter data and social sciences. And I will give you the floor. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you everybody for coming, and first Alex for making this possible. So it's real, I spent one day in this new office before I left, so yeah. I enjoyed Nightingale Hall for like 3 years and a half. It's a real pleasure to be back, and this place is really beautiful, so every time I come there, astonishing. So you guys are very lucky, that's what I would say. So today I will give you a somewhat summary of some of the work I've been doing with many people here in Northeastern on networks and temporal network especially. So I think that this is a good place to start from a network. These is real data, which I don't know if you guys can see in the back, but each node here is a person, and a link between two persons here is drawn if they were involved at least in one phone call. You guys are very familiar with this data. This is a very small city in Europe, and this is the data that you obtain if you integrate the interaction of these people for about 180 days. But if you go and look at the resolution of the data, for example, in 1 hour after the other, you will see that the same network, so the same people, look very different 1 hour after that. So this is 1 hour, the hour after. So if I give you just these two networks, probably you will not be able to patch them and tell me that this is actually what they're going to look like. So the idea, and then what I want to show you today, is that how can we model network at this level to get something that looks like this. And also, when we are doing this, the idea and what we do in college since many years now is to start to understand how the different features that generate this object here as a sequence of this network affect dynamical processes that are unfolding on top of them. Epidemic spreading, social contagion, and whatever. Now I'm doing cyber threats, things like this, whatever you guys like. So then the question I want to ask is, how can we model the features of temporal networks? And the place to start is what I mean by features. So what are these features? So here I'm providing a bias sample of them, just for narrative purposes, but one we can start with is the activity. So if you consider, for example, what is the propensity of people of engaging or starting an interaction in many different networks, this is not homogeneous, it's actually heterogeneous. Some people are much more active than others. This is something that you guys are very familiar with. Then links are not created randomly, so especially in social interaction, we know there are a lot of rules, and people working on this since many years, so ties are definitely not random. And this, of course, has an effect when you decide at each time step where to connect people and how to connect people. Then barstiness, here we have the place of barstiness, so you know the interaction are not indeed Poissonian. And it's particularly relevant when we model networks that change in time, and also attractiveness. So the fact that not only the propensity of people of starting interaction, but also being on the receiving end of one is heterogeneous. And then modularity, which is basically the organization of networks in communities. And of course may be hierarchical, but these may emerge and evolve in time. So, again, what we are going to do in this talk, I'll show you some of the features, how we can model them, and then I want to see how this feature affect dynamical processes on top of them. When you study, for example, spreading of diseases on network change in time, you have two time scales you need to deal with. One is the one describing the evolution of the graph, we can call it TG, and one is the one describing the evolution of the process, TP. And we are very good, and by we I mean network science in general, is very good in dealing in two regimes. I mean, historically, we have a lot of results and analytical and computational results. For example, when the time scale of the network is much faster with respect to the process, effectively what is happening with the process that is evolving in near field. So this is what physicists like a lot, is the near approximation. And then on the other end, we have the case in which the network is basically virtually frozen with respect to the evolution of the process. That's when we can consider network as static. But a lot of things happen, and a lot of fun things happen when the two time scales are actually comparable. In that case, you cannot consider the field approach or the static approximation. You need to consider temporal networks, and this is where we're going to consider today. So, in particular, I want to show you some of the, one of the modeling framework that you can use when you study network in time. That we developed Alex, Romualdo, Sanki here, also Dina participated, many people. It is called activity-driven network. So I will show you some of a lot of variation of them. But this is the framework, starting from a very simple one to some more, let's say, complex. And all the observations started, we developed this network considering real observation in real social systems like Twitter, also Yahoo Beam, collaboration networks, and also mobile phone networks. So the basic intuition, and this is what the first model we developed now 6 years ago, was to consider the fact that activity, so we want to consider activity, the fact that when you model the network change in time, you need to tell me two things. Who is active at each time step, and what are the links? So, what you can do, if you have a network data in time, you can measure, define your time window, in which you can consider the networks, and for each time window, or any size you like, you can compute what is the probability, basically the ratio between the number of interactions that each node initiated, AI, let's call it, divide the total number of interactions by anybody else in that time window. So this basically is the propensity, and I call it activity, of a node to be engaged in a social interaction. Now, the interesting thing about this quantity, with respect, for example, to the degree, which is not stable, of course, depends on the time window you choose, that is not only heterogeneous, but also is independent, or somehow dependent. The cutoff is kind of dependent, but the overall distribution is independent of your decision of the time window. For example, here are data of firms that develop some R&D alliances. If you consider an integration of 1 year, 5 years, 26 years, the distribution seems to be quite constant, which means that you can use this to reproduce some of the features of the network. So consider simply this, the fact that again, the activity of people is heterogeneous, you can model and measure in that way, and that is not dependent on the time window you use to measure it, then we develop the first very simple model, which will have n nodes. Each one of them is associated with an activity. You can extract from your distribution you like, or not, doesn't matter, you can do from the data, effects. And then what you do is that at each time step, you will start with n disconnected nodes, and then again, at each time step, with a probability that depends on this activity potential x, basically an activity rate, AI. Each node is active and creates m links. Now, the first model I will show you is very simple in that this connection and connection each active node creates at the same step are completely random. So, for example, let's imagine this guy here was active, and in this case is equal to 1, and decide to connect with this person. Then these are the other people that were active. Then at time step t plus delta t, all these edges are deleted, and then you have another. You start from point 1, you generate another instance of the network. Then if you integrate, if you do this enough time, you can get something that looks like this. Now this is a very simple model. Again, there is not much there. But one interesting property of it, you can prove it is very intuitive, is that if you take integrate the connection in a certain regime of time, the degree distribution of the network that you obtain integrated in time follows the distribution of activity. This, of course, in the beginning, because at the end, if you do it enough, it's going to be a complete graph. So, in this network, using this model, we study, for example, how the temporal connectivity pattern and the presence of heterogeneity in the activity affect, for example, random walks. So here you have these guys here, the nodes. Some of them might be active. In this case, m is equal to 2. And the green nodes here are walkers. Walkers, in this case, move at the same time scale in which the links appear. So really the minimum time scale, for example, now this guy is here. We start from here, nothing much. The guy was there, a connection was actually good, then he moved there. And walkers in this type of model can move only when the connections are there, so they might be stuck. So, one of the results that you study when you study a process or network is that if you run the walks in both a nil and static network, are, if you study, for example, what is the probability of finding a node, a walker in a degree node k, if you know, these are not the first result, these are linear behavior. No? And if you integrate, if you take our model, you integrate it over time, and you run the simulations of the walkers in that static graph, not surprisingly you find a linear behavior because activity again and degree are correlated. Now, if you consider the case I show you, in which now the walkers might be stuck, there are no connection, and the walkers move at the same time scale in which the links are created, you get something that looks like this. So first of all, the stationary state is not simply linearly dependent on the activity or the degree, but you see they have activity in both numerator and denominator, and you see this interesting effect that for a certain initial phase, the larger the activity, the larger is the potential of this node to attract walkers, but then after a while you have the saturation effect. That means basically that although they might be ups, and it's going to be up there in the integrator over time, and these are going to be the nodes that attract a lot of walkers, if you can say static version, when the walkers are moving at the same time scale in which links are created, there are no ups. And this, of course, limits the capacity of this node to attract other walkers in this case. So, one of the first messages I want to, it's quite obvious, is that when you consider networks that change in time, the way and the fact that there are temporal connectivity patterns might affect quite a bit the process that are unfolding on top of it. For example, in this case of random walkers, even a very simple model in which the link are created randomly, you have simply an heterogeneity in the activity, change quite a bit the stationary state and also the mean first pass time of the random walks. So, the model was fine with a lot of work, but links are not yet random. So the question is, how can we model a bit more realistically social time and social ties considering again time. So again, we want to get something like this. This network is not random. So there are a lot of things there. Some links are much heavier than others. Heterogeneity in the weights. There are local and hierarchical clusters there. So what can we do for that? One of the intuition that we have is that when you are, for example, modeling a mobile phone network, you need to consider that people will not start calling randomly. Not all the time. So you want to remember who is your boyfriend, girlfriend, so there is a kind of memory in there. So how can we put this in this, and how can we measure it? So what we come up with is this function, the Pn, that is the probability that considering a node that at a certain time at n connection, basically after the new event, he will or she will enlarge the social group. Let me give you an example. So this is time. And now I will show you some two type of vertical lines. One is dashed, if that phone call, for example, is toward a person that you never contacted before. The one is in solid, if you instead call somebody you already called before. So, for example, in this case, n is equal to 1, then you call the same person, and new person, n is equal to 2, and same person, so forth, and n equal to 3, n equal to 4. So you're right here after maybe 11 calls, and you contacted 4 people. Now, you can ask, okay, you are here measuring, so given the person, so after the next call, it's going to be towards one of the 4 persons you already contacted or towards a new one. And that's what the measure PM actually measures. So if you consider this in a lot of different networks, here are showing 4, but in the paper we studied 7 of them. We have a collaboration network, PLB, PRL, this Twitter, ad networks, and also mobile phone data. You will see that two things. First of all, the larger the number of connection that a person, not connection, of the social group that person has, the smaller the probability that you will actually enlarge the connection, meaning that a lot of events will be towards person you already know. And then what we found that you can kind of fit very well, and let's forget about the mobile phone for a second, but for this one we can fit very well with this type of formula, in which you have two parameters. One is beta, is the slope of this decay. One is C, this is an offset, which the memory given by beta actually appears. Now, interestingly, you can measure this for each node, one by one, and then you can try to fit C and B and beta. And actually, you can see that in our case, for 6 of the 7 network, you can find an optimal value of C and B that will scale, which we can basically use to scale and collapse all the different behaviors. But for the mobile phone network, although you can fit a single C, beta is kind of all over the place. Not really, but I mean, you see from 1 to 2 to 3, so there's kind of heterogeneity in the memory effect. We don't know really why is that. We investigate a lot of possibilities, but it needs to be one of these effects that you need to take as it is. So, but then, anyway, the important testing is that this function here and this parameter seems to somehow consider quite well the effect of memory. So we can put that, we plug them in the modeling, and then we did the same thing. So now we get a new model in which again you start from n disconnected network, and each time step, each one again, each node has an activity. They fire with a probability depends on that. But now, when a person is active, instead of creating m random links, each link is created randomly with a probability that's Pn. And one minus Pn instead is towards a person, a random person, but in your social circle. So either you create a new connection or you reinforce your social circle. And then, as before, after that, all the edges are deleted. Now, this is, if you select your parameters in a way, and then you run the model I showed you before without memory, so which link are created random, and you run it for one node. I think it's between 50 or 60 times that, you get a network looks like this. If you plug instead the function Pn with the same parameter, same time, everything the same, you get a network that looks like this. So you see, this is quite different than social networks, kind of random. There is no heterogeneity in the weights because you can prove easily with random links the heterogeneity is not there because of the Poissonian function, but instead if you put the function Pn, you see that now some heavy links start to emerge, you start to have some, let's say, local clusters, so there are some more realistic structures that we'd like to see. So then, in this paper we actually show that you can solve the model. For example, given an activity distribution, you can take from data, you can calculate what would be the degree distribution. And then here I'm showing you for all this network that the real degree distribution is with the dots, and then the red one is the one you actually can compute, so you have some operating power in there. And also you can study how the average degree change in time, so how the network grows, and you see that the behavior, I mean, we call it asymptotic, but we have this anyway for us. The data set is limited anyway, so but anyway, the final behavior is dominated by the memory effect, and it is encapsulated in beta. So in this network, again, we consider, okay, we have two versions of the model, one in which the link are created random, one in which we have a memory. So what is the effect of memory in epidemic spreading? Then what you can see is that if you run the model without memory, you have the blue line. If you put the memory, you have the red line. and you see that the presence of memory and the reinforcement of connection in a SIR model slow down the process, something that is well known. And also the threshold certificate seems to be different, so memory and correlation seems to be quenching the process. And then we ask, okay, what about SAS process? So in SAS process, we have an endemic state if you are above threshold, and what we found that you have actually an inversion. So here I'm showing you what is called a lifetime. So when you have an SAS process, the problem is that you need to compute what is the endemic state. And then if you run it in a simulation, you need stochastic elements, that's very hard to know where the actual system is equilibrium. So there is this trick that Caio Castellano and Romualdo developed, in which you can compute for the SIS, which is the time, the average time that the process needs either to die or to reach a macroscopic number. And this is equivalent to the susceptibility of this transition. So instead of having a behavior, you don't know if it's that or the threshold, you get peaks. The threshold is, and you see that when you put the memory, that you have an inversion, meaning that having memory and having a repetition of connection for an SS process is actually good for the disease. It is due to the fact that while in SIR process, as soon as a person recovers, each link that an infected used to connect with that node is lost in terms of the potential spread link. Instead for SIS, you can use them, actually use them to survive in local patches. So in this case, this seems to be the memory, and with local correlation, it seems to be helping the spread. So, and also you can try to do the same thing in real networks. Here we took a PRL and Twitter network. The one without memory, we simply shuffle the connection to work out a couple connections. You see that you have the same behavior as we saw in the model, I mean, at least qualitatively. So the take-home message number 2, I would say that the memory and the correlation, in this case local correlation in which the social connections are created, induce non-trivial effect, and this depends on the type of process. So SIR or SI behave in a way, SIS actually behave in a different way. So then we thought that attractiveness and the fact that so not only the probability of creating a connection on a new tweet or whatever is not homogeneous, but also the probability of being in the receiving end of at, for example, something on Twitter is not homogeneous as well. So attractiveness is not homogeneous. So what we study here, we consider 2 different directed time-by network. One is the Linux kernel development, and one is a very small sample of Facebook. And you can basically measure what is the activity measured as an outlink, and the attractiveness measured as the inlink. And you see that the two, in this case, look very similar, but they're also very heterogeneous. They're not only heterogeneous and look similar, but they're also correlated. So it looks like the more active you are, the more active you are, at least in these 2 networks, and the correlation to be our exponent 1. So, before we consider memory and local effect in terms of local effect, you want to connect with your friends over and over. In this case, instead, we consider attractiveness as a popularity effect, and we use the linear preferential attachment to capture that trend. So the dynamics goes like this. You have any connected nodes before. Each one of them is acting by a certain probability, is given by the activity. But now, the nodes have 2 properties. One is the activity, one is an attractiveness that you can take from any distribution you like, maybe correlated or not, doesn't matter. But then, when a node is active, create M links, and then select the target of connection proportional to the attractiveness all the time. You can study random walks in this type of things, and you can compute analytically both the stationary state, again, and the mean first pass of time, and then you find out that the stationary state change in this way, but the math is not important. What I want to show is that the introduction of attractiveness actually slows down even more the diffusion of the walkers. This is the fact that, again, you put some popularity and measure them, the walker are rerouted all the time back towards the same nodes. Epidemic spreading as well. You can compute the threshold analytically. I didn't show you how to compute this for the simple version of the model, but you can recompute it this way. And this dashed line is the threshold of a SIR model without memory. So the random first model I show you. They can tell you, okay, but I want to consider attractiveness, and I don't care about correlation between attractiveness. This is the threshold you get. And then if you actually tell me, you know what, not only attractiveness are there and they're heterogeneous, but also correlated. You see that the threshold goes even lower. So it seems to be that popularity, at least in this case, and as we know this also for the real static energy network, helps the spreading of the disease. So take home message number 3, that the popularity and global popularity affects quite a bit the dynamical process as well. So the last thing I want to show you guys is that we know that social networks, in general networks, including social, are organized in communities. And when you consider time, you need to consider that not only are there, but these appear, evolve, and change in time. So again, can we put this element there? Can we study what are the effects of the principle of modularity, for example, on epidemic spreading or other processes? The answer is yes. Actually, it's very easy to consider that, at least as a modeling framework. We start with dense connected nodes. As before, the nodes have an activity, but now what we can do is that we use, for example, we assign nodes to communities. The communities cannot be overlapped, at least in this version of the model, so each node is one community only, and then you can consider, for example, that in a real network, we know that the size of the community is not homogeneous, it will be power law, so you can put that for any distribution you like. And then, as before, each node is active with a certain probability, it depends on activity, and now you have a little game you play in which, with a probability mu, you shoot inside your community. For example, this guy here. And instead of probability 1 minus mu, you shoot outside your community. Of course, you regulate them quite strongly the type of modularity that you have. So, the question is, what is the effect of this in epidemic spreading, for example? And what you can show is that the threshold is kind of not really clear what's happening there, but what is clear is that the more modular the network are, the less, the smaller the epidemic size, because again, the correlation in the link creation, especially in high modular network, slow down quite a bit the spreading. So this is actually a well-known fact also for static and linear graphs. Instead, in the case of SAS model, we again use the lifetime measure to compute the threshold, and you see that the other way around. That actually the larger the modularity, the smaller is the threshold of the spreading, and this is due to the fact again that for SAS processes that have an endemic state is actually optimal, not optimal, is beneficial to have a local type of structure in the connection. So communities, as we saw for memory, actually helps the spreading of the disease. You can do also this, try to do this in real networks. We consider here the whole PS network, and the version without community, you simply reshuffle all the connection. You see that you have more or less the same behavior, in which the threshold for an SAS process is smaller when you have modularity in real network, and the epidemic size for the RSR model is lower. So, the last take-home message is that the effect of modularity are very important for spreading, but it also depends on the type of process that you start. When you put that, it's particularly important when you consider time. So I want to finish, in case we just put in some of the references, I guess, if you are interested and want to learn more about temporal network. These are very biased view of the field. This is the one recent, probably the most recent review is this one by Perra, which is very, very nice. There is also this new edited book by Naoki Masuda and also Peter. It is about, in particular, about epidemiology network, the change in time. And there is this new review about random walks that also consider time-varying network. Of course, a new review by Alex and Nicola Perra and others is consider more generally processes on the network, and then a very biased this new review that we wrote with Marcel, Nicola Perra and others, that consider the effect of vaccination. And I didn't speak about that, but you can actually consider study what is the effect of a different vaccination strategy. You have network change in time, and you have a summary there. So I want to finish thanking a lot of people that were involved in this, of course, Alex and here Dina and Sanki and many other previous students of Alex, and then some other people that I met later on. And of course, thank you very much for your attention.
So we have time for questions. I guess that one we break the ice, and the first thing is, you know, when you talk about reinforcement mechanism, etc., there is what the story is that you tend to, I would say, go back to your old context. There is always the problem, I think, that Rome discussed and some other discuss about burst of activity. So the fact that this is not Poissonian in time, etc. Is there anything that is happening in the field with respect to that, or so?
Yeah, I didn't. So I didn't show that, but for example, there is in our, let's say, framework. There is a recent paper that we wrote in which you study the you add the burstiness in the system, and then also you study you can consider what is the interplay between burstiness and memory. For example, this thing. So far, what we did is to develop a model and we try to understand how the network changes in time. And you see that according to the how you model it and how strong is burstiness and memory, we have quite different type of networks. And our intuition is that, and I think that Raffaello Brioni led that effort, is studying now with Claudio Castellano how this type of interplay affect, for example, dynamical processes. Because I mean, in the literature there is quite a feud between people that say, okay, burstiness is actually slowing down the process. Other people say, you know what, it might actually be the opposite, depending on the type of model we study. And then our intuitions might be dependent on the network we consider. Maybe depends on this interplay between memory and burstiness. But let's see what we see.
Excellent talk. I really liked all the takeaway messages. So what was the takeaway message on the vaccine survey that you guys did?
The takeaway message there was that, I mean, in that paper that we did, we considered three very simple versions. One is the classic random, which is of course very inefficient. You need a lot of people to reach herd immunity. The other one is that if you consider that if you target, you know, for example, the activity of people, you can change dramatically the threshold and use this very effective way to stop the disease. But then the problem with that is that nobody has the blood eye, so you don't know what is the activity of people in real networks. And you can consider, for example, the time varying version of the Friends paradox. So the fact that you can sample the network for a short set of time steps, and use that to kind of sample connection and get close to the most active one, and then use that to protect the system. You can do quite a good job with that. So similar to what you see in this type of network. So even a partial incomplete information about the graph, you can, via sampling in time, you can get a good approximation of what the activity of people is, and then use that to stop effectively the disease.
And how do you do the sampling? Is it just a random sampling? Or
in our case, we simply consider that the network is going there, and we have, 10 time step to observe the network. Then what we do is that we have a set of connections, then we pick up a guy randomly, and we immunize one of the friends.
Okay, so a random friend of the guy that you ran. I see.
Yes. I see. And then it's very similar to the way, for example.
Why did you consider looking at attractiveness of the friend?
Back then we didn't have that, but it's a good point. Yes.
Okay. Great, thank you.
One more question about the communities. You have that study on the communities in terms of just dividing between communities. Have you ever tried to transpose this so in a sense you have always, now the temporal pattern is just among I would say, it's just shifted on how many times you connect outside with respect to how many times you connect inside. If you do something in which you leave permanent reconnection, and the time where part is inside the community, what happens? Do you have any idea of?
Well, I mean, it's not exactly what you said, because I think your intuition is correct if the size of the community is the same.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have actually a heterogeneity in there might be few communities that they believe that they behave exactly as they would do anyway, because they're quite big and the people tend, even if the modularity is not so big, they prefer to connect inside. And if you fix the connection, I have no idea.
But in your community were all homogeneous? Or
No. We try both. I don't have an intuition, but probably you assume that there are two time scales involved in a sense. One is the connection between communities, or you're talking about metapopulation.
No, the metapopulation. No, I'm
Yeah.
talking about the metapopulation, but then you introduce another time scale in a sense.
No, I have no intuition on that. But it would be interesting to study.
What is the metapopulation? I missed it.
That's jargon.
Okay, I know what a population is.
It's when you have communities, basically. When you
I
have
see.
a population and then you section in subpopulations which are connected together,
Yeah,
and this is called metapopulation.
I see.
That
Okay.
is in biology, ecology, epidemiology, that's the name. So basically a patchy network, a network of networks that is patchy is a metapopulation.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, any other question? Well, Nicola is still here until, close of business today, and then he's leaving for the next stop on his travel in the US, and thank you very much for being here. If you want, you find him on the 10th floor, okay, if you have any question. Thanks a lot.